What's up, guys? Spartan Cat, and in today's Battlecats video, I'm ranking the 10 normals on a tier list that goes from S tier down to F. There is no D tier because I believe that these normals are either somewhat usable, good, excellent, or horrible. There isn't a whole lot of middle ground between being decent and being buns. So I did skip the D tier. But getting into the video with our one and only S tier on this list, none other than Eraser Cat, and there is pretty much no debate about this. Eraser Cat is tried and tested by millions and millions of users, and I don't think there's a single Eraser Cat hater out there. I've met many people that like Eraser Cat and that love him. I'm one of them, but Eraser Cat, there's very little debate about him being a bad meat shield. He is an amazing meat shield that you're going to use for most of the game. You're going to use dual erasers quite a bit, and even after you get Manic Eraser Cat, Eraser is still a solid option that you might still use. So Eraser might fall down to an A after you get into a certain point in the game, but undoubtedly an S tier when you're looking at everything. And for the first half of the game, your best meat shield by a long shot. And even later on, a great generalist option. Could use him in many lineups. He's quite versatile. He's just this tank, and he's cheap. So there's very little controversy surrounding that ranking. But getting into the other 9, there will be some more discussion. Moving on to the polar opposite, one of the two Fs. One of the two Fs on this list will be Dark Cat. And Dark Cat falls short in just about every single test you could think of. His damage is subpar. He has no survivability. He costs 300 cents, which is not expensive, I guess, but the fact that you keep sending him out like a meat shield and he costs 300, for the same price you could send out better units if you consider the money you're spending per second. And especially after you leave Empire of Cats, there's really no room in your lineup for Dark Cat. And any room that might be available is going to be given to somebody like Manic Island or Can or something along those lines. Maybe Neo Cutter. Anti-red is such a power creeped section of the game. There are so many units that could deal with red enemies that Dark Cat won't even be an afterthought. On top of that, even if you are an Empire of Cats, you will learn that Ninja Cat quickly outclasses him. It's just a better alternative, and although you can get Dark Cat up to high levels that you can't get Ninja Cat up to, and it eventually becomes higher power in terms of that. By the time you do that, he is completely useless, completely outclassed, and that will end my rant on Dark Cat, which I can continue for a much longer period of time. Moving on from Dark Cat, we have Jamiera, who will be our first C, and Jamiera, not a whole lot of great, but also not bad, so I put it C, average, mid, but there are times that you're going to use Jamiera in Empire of Cats. A lot of times, he's going to be your first acting Uber. You know, he's going to be an enforcer. He's going to deal some good damage, get some kills before he goes, and usually make up his value. So in Empire of Cats, he's a crucial piece to you advancing. But after Empire of Cats, when you start getting Ubers like Balrog even, or Can, you're going to notice that his playing time goes down the drain. And once you get Manic, Jamiera, now you're competing against somebody that could produce waves and is usually the better of the two options. So it is a crowded market, especially for Jamiera. And he doesn't do anything wrong necessarily. He's decent for his price. He has decent stats all around, but he doesn't get outclassed by other units. So it's not so much of a bad unit, but rather a unit that other units could outperform. Going into the B tier, maybe B plus range, we have Island Cat. And Island Cat is a very solid anti-red unit who is strong against reds, so it only takes half the damage against them while producing 150% damage. So that's a good trade-off. And of course, a negligible chance of a critical hit, but hey, if you get it, you get it. Island Cat is a pretty solid anti-red unit who, with good survivability combined with good offense, could hold its own. And for its price, it's quite solid. However, when you do get Manic Island Cat, you will see the usage of Island Cat go to almost non-existent levels just because of how much better Manic Island is. But don't worry, if you do like Island Cat, he's a solid choice, and he will help you throughout some of Stories of Legend, through Empire of Cats, through Into the Future, some of that stuff. But when you get in the mid to late game, he will fall off because you will have better alternatives, similarly to Jamiera. But I will put him at B because he is quite usable and quite a good unit for a good amount of time in the game before you replace him with his own namesake. So it goes to show their stats aren't too off, but Manic Island is cheaper, so that often prompts people to use him. Moving on from Island Cat, we have our second F tier, which is going to be Flying Cat. And Flying Cat's stats are too low for the price and the long cooldown, where many people just use Paris Cat or something else like that. So just a weak unit overall, not a whole lot of offering to give. That combined with low range, and it's really hard to stack them or do anything meaningful with them, and it ends up being a waste of money. You might not even use Flying Cat in Empire of Cats because of Dragon Cat and Gross Cat. So being outclassed by other normals really just goes to show how ridiculously underpowered this cat is. But don't worry, if you do like Flying Cat's design, then Lil Flying Cat might be for you because he is quite good against zombies. So if you do want to use a Flying Cat, don't use him, but use Lil Flying Cat. Moving on from that, we have Dragon Cat, who is another B tier, a good unit, and an overall strong support backliner type unit where you might even do a double or triple dragon in some instances, which is kind of funny. You have Lil Dragon, you have Manic Dragon, and you have Dragon, and you can stack three of them, which is once again funny, but you probably won't do that. It's expensive. Overall, a pretty solid option for your backline. You might not use them so much later in the game, but it doesn't stop them from being usable. We just get too selfish with our Ubers and our legend rares and stuff. But don't forget about him. He's a decent unit, and you could use him throughout the game just fine. Crazed Dragons are good as well. Willow Dragon, you could talent him up. So overall, the Dragon family is pretty solid, and I think he earns a respectable B. Moving on from that, yeah, this is going to be like bottom of the barrel C, like a 70 for Lion Cat, which is very useful for time stages and stuff like not Empire of Cats, excuse me, Into the Future, where you have time stages and stuff, and you don't already have Manic Lion Cat. So before that, Lion Cat's great. He can get you a ton of farmed materials. Overall, you could use him as some expensive meat shield in certain stages. He could rush, and obviously in time score stages, you could use him well. But later in the game, you're never going to use him because you're going to have Manic Lion, you're going to have Bullet Train, you're going to have all these better alternatives that are better rushers. Awaken Muhammad Cat, don't forget about him. So overall, he gets incredibly outclassed. He's just slower than the other units. His stats are worse, and he will get outclassed. But he does have a time to shine, so he at least clings on to a passing grade because we've all used him. We've all enjoyed using him at some point. Another B plus unit, I would say, not quite an A tier, but a B plus, is going to be Macho Legs. And Macho Legs is like the fish cat against aliens in the true form. You know, strong, so from middle range, 350 range, and that allows him to be stacked, survive against most units, and that combined with only taking half the damage and giving back 1.5 times in return is very useful because you can stack him in a very solid line of support in lieu with an Uber. So if you want to use Bora with him or whatever, then you have Bora, and to protect Bora, you have the Macho Legs, and they can defend each other and deal a lot of damage while maintaining where you are on the stage because the Macho Legs have enough health to stay put. So overall, a very solid, respectable unit, and even when you're not using him against aliens, he's a pretty solid generalist, so he does earn a B, B plus, somewhere around there. He's a good normal, and you will use him quite a bit, especially if you don't just want a shockwave unit, which is what Manic Macho Legs is, who is more of just a generalist. Fire shockwaves isn't good against a trait, so if you do want a specialist unit against aliens, then Macho Legs is probably one of the first places you look. So solid B plus. Going in A, we have Mohawk Cat. He's going to be used quite a bit as a meat shield through early game, paired with a racer most times, maybe Gato Amigo, Sumo, units like that. And even in middle to late game, you might still use him once in a while. But he's iconic, and every time you open the app, you see him. So I figured, he has to be good. He's on that icon for a reason. He's the first cat you get. And technically, you couldn't do anything in the game without him because you need him to beat Korea. So think about that the next time you pick up the phone to play. He is just that good. Just kidding. He's a decent meat shield, but he does help you out a lot early game, and he's been used in a ton of lineups. He's versatile, and most importantly, cheap. He's very cheap. You might end up using Lil Mohawk and Manic Mohawk over him, but he does have usage for a long span of the game, and many players enjoy using him because of the cost effectiveness and the availability. And last but not least, so I could rank Super Feline on a few different things because you don't get him to level 100 until late into the game, very late into the game. So definitely the least accessible normal. He's the most recent normal, so not a lot of people have had the time to get him to level 100. And on top of that, just getting him to level 100, all the user ranks you have to do and everything. So yeah, late game acquisition. But at the same time, when you do get him up there, he's like an IDI, Awakened Muhammad Cat type unit. So I'm going to put him in A. If you do have him, he is very, very powerful and in his true form. No doubt about it. And I was bummed out to see that, unlike the other normals, his true form wasn't level 30 because I had him at level 30 and I was like, whoa, I have a great anti-relic unit. I'm going to crush Uncanny Legends. And then I see level 100. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So that's definitely an important thing to keep in mind with Super Feline. But he is absolutely cynical against them. So the way I would sum it up is it takes an incredibly long time to get him, very long investment, but overall, an incredibly powerful relic that isn't too expensive. Did I say relic? He's not a relic. He's a relic destroyer. So keep that in mind. Very powerful, but a large investment to get him to where you need him to be. But this is my list on the normal cat ranking. I did one of these last summer, and it was awful. I went back. I had units way, way higher than I should have had them. So this is a revised list. And also, over this summer, I did an overrated, underrated on this, if you'd like to check that out. But this is just a plain tier list, and I felt like I had to update the one from 2023. So this should apply to this year, next year, and as long as they don't add another normal cat, this list should be good. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. It means even more now than it does normally because the channel is down right now in terms of views and whatever. But if you've made it this far, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And leave down below in the comment section any thoughts you might have, video suggestions, whatever it might be. Just remember to be civil and engage in good discussion. Sparring Cat signing off, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.